All right, everyone. So after I did the Green Swamp Google Scout, I got some nice feedback on that, and through some other comments on some of my other videos, someone mentioned Goethe Wildlife Management Area, and I thought I'd decide to do a Google Scout for that as well. Something I forgot, I haven't mentioned, I'll talk about now. On the FWC website, there's under the brochure, there's a location map for all the areas in Florida, all the management areas. And this is something that it's good to take a look at. Find where you live in Florida and kind of just, draw a circle around your area. See which management areas are nearby you, even in that, 1 to 2 to 3 hour drive range. And take a look at them. If some of them, even though it may be a far drive, it may be something, not this hunting season, but in hunting seasons to come, you spend some time scouting there, the better you get to know it. Makes it worthwhile for the drive to get there. A lot of these areas are permit only. With those, what I like to do is go out to the areas during their small game season and kind of use that as my scout time. A lot of them have, hog hunting during that time. So you get an opportunity to, take a hog if you come across one. But you also have that opportunity to find some good heavy deer sign. And usually this is after the deer seasons have occurred. And so you'll see what deer's left. You'll see what's still moving in the area. And if you zero in on some really quality deer spot, then you can put in for that in the next year's permit drawings. So that's just a suggestion I wanted to mention to everybody. Look at these areas. And don't seclude yourself to just the 1 or 2 areas that are closest to your house. I hunt all the way up in Ocala, and a lot of the reasons why I hunt up there is I've just hunted there for 20 or 30 years now, so I know so much of the area, and that makes it worth the drive. I don't have to do as much scouting. I can really get in there and find some good deer quickly. So we'll go over and jump into Goethe here and tell you what I found on that area. All right, as always, you want to start off with the brochure with all the regulations for an area. In looking over this one of the things that caught my eye was there's no quota permits required for archery hunting. So general gun, muzzleloading gun, they all have quota permits where you got to go through the random drawing system. But here, if you're an archery hunter, you're going to be able to hunt this every year, which that's definitely a plus for me. The other thing is not all of the management areas allow you to take antlerless deer during archery, and this one happens to allow that. So that's also going to, up your chances, up your odds at, being able to take a shot at a deer, get some deer in the freezer. Also, a few years back, the state went to 3 points on a side for most of their management areas. And this is one of the few ones that's only 2 points on a side. And so once again, that's going to give you a little more opportunity, especially if you're a new hunter and you're trying to get that first deer under your belt. You have a little more opportunity to take a shot at a deer. Next thing you always want to do is we're going to hop over to the map. This area is about 45,000 acres, good size to it, stretched out in a long, slender path through the state. And as you can see, there's a number of access points, all the black arrows. A lot of places to enter this, and the major roads kind of divided up as well. So when I initially looked at this, I was like, wow, I like finding areas that are hard to get to and, not a lot of easy roads to access. But I actually found some really good spots in this, even though there's a lot of access points and maintained roads out there. So we'll go over and jump into Google Earth too. So one of the first things I did, tried to outline most of the boundary area. Just looking at the map, seeing, where the roads are, and get an idea of exactly where things were. You can see on this west side, I didn't want to be scouting into this area that's outside the management area, just because it's going to be pointless. I'm not going to be able to, actually hunt there. So I want to be able to make sure I stayed within it. On the east side, the developments and farmlands, is pretty easy to know where you're getting outside the boundaries. So I got some push pins. I'm going to go through each of these and start talking about what I liked about that specific spot and my approach to hunting it. So the first place, I'll zoom in here. This is Scout 1 is the area I want to look at. As for my other videos, I like to find big cypress heads. There's one right along here, and there's another one along here. This acts to help, funnel the deer through specific areas. And here you have two of them with a road that cuts right through the high ground of this. So I thought this is a definitely good area to look. Although this is actually a marked road. If we go back to our map here, down here, this is what we're looking at. This is right on the southern border of the area, right down here. And this is that road that I have marked in blue. You can see there's a creek that runs right into here as well. So this is the area that I'm looking at, just so you know where on the map I'm talking about. So here there's this high ground, and as I zoomed in, there's a bedding area here. This was clear cut a few years back. So you got some good bedding areas, some high canopy trees that may give you some openings. Once again, there is an easy access point to it, but people may not jump off this and press into along this cypress head. If you've read anything off my website or listened to my videos where I talk about in Tiger Bay the transition areas, when you have these pine areas up against the cypress head, usually you have a transition area that doesn't have a lot of underbrush, but it's still in the dry season it's higher ground, so the deer will use those kind of secluded openings around the cypress heads for good travel corridors. So these are places where you want to look here, and I thought this was a good one. It's far on the south end of the management area, and not knowing how much traffic actually runs this road, you may find some good deer runs through here. Second area, this is a little further up. Gotcha. All right, so this next area I want to look at, got it marked over here. I put the pin over it out of the way on the cypress head. So this is a named marked road through here, and there's another one that travels up right through this part of the woods here. And something, as I've talked about in my other videos, is wherever the roads are, I like to look at where there's a good area to hold some deer, that there's no traffic. And that's what I kind of see through here. You have that creek running up here, which is going to be just kind of a natural divider to kind of keep the deer contained and funneling through here. So this is an area that I'd like to, go out and put some boots on the ground, hike back in here, particularly along the creek bed, and see if there's some deer runs running along through there. You got a clear-cut area here. This may have grown up, may hold some good bedding areas. This is definitely an area where you got to just get out, not only look for the deer sign, but also there are some trails through here. Look for hunter signs. The first thing I would probably do would be taking this road up, seeing how many spots. Usually if an area is getting hunted often, you'll see a good parking area where the grass has been cleared out. See how many people are hunting the outside edge, give you an idea of how much pressure is in that area. All right, the next place I want to take you is Scout 3. Got a push pin here. This is the County Road 326, just giving you an idea where in the management area I'm talking about. I gotta hop over to the map. That's this kind of opening area right here you see, right next to Woodpecker Road, just above this creek line. That's the area I'm looking at here. So, as I've said in some of my other videos and using Google Earth, make use of the slider here, which will take you back in time to see what the forest was looking like in years past. One of the things I noticed about this area is, as you go back to 2012, you can see there's this big open area that they went through and thinned the forest out. They didn't do a complete clear cut, They just went through and thinned out the bigger trees. It's going to open up the canopy and just allow for some more underbrush, some more forbs and that to grow in and give the deer a lot more access to food, as opposed to just a lot of tall trees with an enclosed canopy. You're not going to get too much growing on the forest floor. So that's the first thing here that I noticed. That's going to offer a lot of food. It's a big area that they enclosed with that. I marked it here. This whole area is just over 700 acres. So you got a really big expanse that's going to offer a lot of fresh food for the deer. Now, all that's going to grow in, and it's going to be pretty, it's going to be a lot of underbrush, which is going to make it hard to get some shots at the deer. But they did still leave, you know, this is one of the areas I look, they did still leave some pockets of tall trees. It's going to give you, you know, some openings underneath the canopy of the trees. Same thing with this section over here. You got a nice thick area of taller trees that may give you some opened up canopy underneath, and that's going to give you some opportunity to shot at a deer there. So this is something I liked. Once again, got to get out there and see what deer signs out there, but you have definitely some thick cover areas. You're going to have a good source of food, and then you're still going to have some areas where you're going to be able to catch the deer in some open areas. You only need 40-50 yards of just an opening to have that deer run cut through there and get a good shot at the deer. So the next spot I want to take you to, got a push pin here. So the fourth one. Let me show you where this is on the map first. So right here, I'll zoom in on this southern end. There's this private property area that's marked off right here. And the area I'm looking at is kind of like right under this, this black arrow. So I'll go back to Google Earth. Here's this kind of open area, is that private property. This is the area of private property. And what I noticed, so you got an area, so you're not going to be able to have hunters. People aren't going to run their dogs really close to the private property. Then you also have this kind of long cypress head here. And there's easy access. There's a road that cuts through here. But you have this little stretch of high ground that you may be getting a lot of deer activity through. Because you got well-traveled roads on the outside, and then you also have that private property, people may pass this up. So this may be an area to definitely check out and see how much deer activity is in there. Take you a couple hours just to walk it real quick. Don't only look for deer signs, look also for hunter signs. Are there trails marked? Are there some marks on trees where people are putting up climbers? See how much, always look for hunting pressure. If there's a high amount of pressure there, not too much deer sign, it may not pan out to anything. But I thought it would be an easy, quick area to just check out, scout real quick. Maybe people are just driving past it, paying no attention to it. So you might be able to find a good spot in there. So kind of like that point there, I'm going to take you up here just to this bottom corner of the management area. I'll show you where I'm talking about on the map. If you look here, between these two arrows, there's a little triangle that kind of gets cut out by the road and the boundary. And that's the area I'm looking at right now. Here, I thought, once again, just a quick scout just to check things out. As you zoom in, you got power lines that run north and south pretty much through here. And I got my red line here. I don't know if the power lines are included in the state forest. This out over here, as you can see, there's a defined line on these trees here. This may be the actual boundary. So this power line area may be included in the state forest. And that's something you either have to check out with, you'll either have to check that out, call somebody, or if you walk out there, you'll usually see signs stating that this is a state forest boundary. So this is the first thing you do. But what I liked about this is, once again, people may be using this road, driving past this area, not realizing that maybe you have a good area of deer crossing in and out of the state forest. to this other area, which is likely a private land area over here. You can see they're row planting pine trees. So you may find a good area if you like hunting on the power lines, catching deer crossing underneath, or you might just find a good spot just inside the canopy of trees where you can have a good ambush point to set up on a deer run as well. So this is another one of those areas where may get passed over because it's such a small area of land that nobody wants to pay, people might not pay much attention to it, but the deer could be crossing these areas somewhere along here. So that's just an interesting, quick little scout. See if there's anything worth taking an interest in there. We're going to go up to the north end now. As you can see, we're close to the top up here. So this is an area you can see that they clear-cutted a large amount of this area. And there's a lot of open fields here. So that's going to offer definitely some nice nighttime feeding for the deer. You're going to get a lot of forbs growing out here in the fields. Forbs are essentially mostly what we call weeds. These are like broadleaf flowering plants that aren't grasses. Deer actually don't eat much grass. When you see them on the side of the road, they're usually eating the clover that's growing there, not necessarily the grass. They don't digest the grass really well like, say, cows do. They prefer forbs and some woody browse. So with that, you have definitely some nice nighttime feeding areas, but also this is going to kind of, consolidate the deer during their daytime moving patterns. Most people, you hunt the deer, at first light and last light in the evening, and deer don't hold up for, 10 hours throughout the day. They're going to get up and do a little moving and grazing, and during the rut, those bucks are going to be on the move as well. So you kind of want to, you can use these big expanse and open fields to find areas where it's going to, funnel those deer for some daytime movements. And there's a couple places that I'm going to point out here. The first place is going to be, and there's a little trail that cuts in off of this road right through here. So it could be hunted pretty heavily as well, but I would check this out. You have a nice area going through where the deer are going to feel like there's some cover. They may not travel on this Jeep trail, but they may be traveling, crossing through in a north-south pattern, possibly an east-west pattern. They're crossing through here. So see if in any of these pinch points you got a heavily used deer trail. You may find some rubs or scrapes through here that's going to give you a good clue that they're using this quite often. And it's just somewhere for them to go, staying in cover, traveling from one spot to another. Another thing you can also do is kind of look for a crossing through the middle of these fields. As we back out, you got this big area in here of dense vegetation, and on this side you have some area here of denser vegetation. And as I looked at this, you can see there's one spot here where maybe they're going to have to spend a little bit of time out in the open, but you can almost zigzag a pattern right along these edges where they can feel comfortable, or even at the top up here, feel comfortable about moving across this field in daylight without being completely in the open. Interesting spot where I thought, you could set up on this. Down here, you're going to have some tall trees at the edge, and so if you set up here, you can see you got 85, during a gun season, 85, 100 yards, you could set up here and have a good shot open field look at that. Rarely in Florida do you have a spot where you can, look across the open field and possibly get a shot at a deer, but that may be one of the areas where it'd work out for you. Definitely something to check it out if you don't have a high concentration of activity. Not just, you don't want to just look at rubs and scrapes, but check tracks. I'm going to do a video a little later on checking deer tracks and aging them just to see what kind of activity is going through an area. I'll get that up. All right, from here I'm going to take us all the way up to this northern point. I always hated how Google Earth turns your view. I like a straight down look view in the areas. So this is the area I'm looking up all the way up here. Now, one being on this far point, I don't know how many people are traveling up there, but what caught my eye on here, over here you can see this looks to be like some open planted cow fields. So not a lot of bedding areas. Most of this is cypress heads, maybe the deer will bed there. Towards the east, you have a big dry pond area, probably floods during the rainy season, dries out during the dry season, and lines of cypress head there. So that's gonna, once again, you got this kind of funnel area of higher ground pines throughout here. Even to the north, there's a large cypress head secluding it. And that's just gonna, for daytime movement, gonna keep these deer kind of condensed in here. And also, there's not many roads leading up into this. I'm sure there's some jeep trails under the canopies of trees, but if we go back to our map, you can see there's only one, and this dotted road is only used during dog hunt. So for those archery and still hunt seasons, that's going to be a gated road where you're not going to really have any access to get into this area. So this is up here, this northern point is what we're looking at. So up here in this far north corner, there is a jeep trail that cuts in. This is something you can come check out, and it's going to give you a nice, easy, short access right into this heavy high ground of pines. Now, you may have a lot of hunters already using this. Maybe somebody's discovered this already and they're hunting it pretty heavily. But if nobody's really pushing back that far, you may find a good cluster, some doe family groups, as well as some bucks coming into this area. All right, so this last two areas I want to show you, they're over here on this east side, about halfway up, going across, I think this is the County Road 326 that cuts through the state forest here. So I'm going to go to this possible bedding area first. Let me just line this all up real quick. So one of the things I noticed, once again, sliding back in time on some of these previous pictures, there's these two spots right here and right here that aren't trees. They're not growing up. Seems like it's just like scrub oaks, because if you look in closely, you can see shadows of larger trees to the side of them. And even as you go further in time to something current, it's still low vegetation. So this is probably like something like scrub oaks, which is going to be a great bedding area for the deer. Also, you have it's a county road. You probably don't have many people hunting right off of this road. You got a big cypress head that kind of secludes things here. And the area that I think would be, a good place to check out is this high ground right along here on this east boundary. Now, there's a couple things that I like about this. One, having this boundary to private property. If any of these people, there's some good, 1 to 5 acre plots here. Any of these people happen to have a corn feeder on their property to draw the deer in, that's going to keep these deer in this area, year after year of always being able to go over and get some corn. So that's one thing. I'd walk this property boundary, see if there's a area where the deer are crossing repetitively. Maybe you can even see the corn feeder. There's a management area that I hunt, and I have a spot set up about 300-400 yards in from the boundary, because I found where somebody has a 55-gallon corn feeder about 50 yards in on their property, drawing the deer out of the state forest that I hunt. So here, you can kind of find the same thing. You don't have to necessarily cross from this major road. Down here in the bottom, there's probably access through here just to come up. And now this is probably just a short walk, like 800 yards from here. So you're only like 500-600 yards. So that's definitely a short walk just to park yourself right in this area. Another area with this that could be looked at is, zoom back in here, you may have a funnel coming right through here. You see you got the cypress heads got a small little dry pond and cypress heads around here. So you may have a good funnel that you can pick up here as well, or even just a pinch point funnel around this open dry pond and through here. So these are some good areas to check out, and they could be a very short walk. Maybe people, once again, are already hunting there. Maybe there is a, an area and people have already found it, because most of the time if it's a short walk in a good hunting area, somebody's already scouted it out. But you'd be surprised on how these areas get passed over so easily, especially if you push far up into this upper portion up here. There's a lot of high ground, and now you're dealing with about 1,000 yards. And if there's not a good area to walk up there, there might not be a lot of people hunting. What you can look for is see if a lot of times on the boundary lines, there'll be a fence line for the state forest, and you could walk that fence line, of course staying on the state forest side, and it can be an easy walk up into this area that may hold those deer. And once again, you're right up against this bedding area. So this is an area I liked. Could be one of those that just gets passed over real easy, high ground areas that can hold some deer. Going across that county road, this is an area that kind of had some interest in as well. There's a dry pond in the middle of it. It's just easy to mark it. But right here, there's a creek that cuts through here. Once again, a natural, barrier, a natural divider. You got some low, looks kind of like a scrub oak area. But this is a section of high ground right in the middle here. I took this area just to find how much, what the acreage is of it. And that's, you got 150 acres right through just this area right here. Definitely can hold, a doe group, or, a few bucks, even a couple doe groups. Just to this north area, there's definitely a lot of trails, a lot of easy access for people. But what I liked about this is I didn't see any real easy entrances. Even if you go back a number of years, going back to 2012, this little road here, right along this cypress head, seems to divide all this area to the north from this big area of high ground right in the middle. There may be a way to get in from up here. I think there's a little road that this road here cuts up to the north somewhere here. A lot of canopies of trees. You can pick up little bits of it. But there still seems to be this strip of cypress that are going to, just keep a lot of the hunters out. Probably not get too many people dog hunting right in this area. So this could hold a lot of deer for you, hold a couple big bucks that have just found it to be a safe haven, and they hold up there every year during daylight hours. So this is, if I had some time, it'd probably take you a couple days to really scout this area out well. But this would be like a good prime area. If you find no other, signs of hunters being in the area, hunting this a lot, you may find some, it's a good hunting hole for the bucks to hold up in. So that's the last spot I have for you here. Hopefully, one of the things about this area that I found could be kind of tough to hunt is there's a lot of just patchy cypress heads and not a lot of long, areas of cypress. I pointed out a few of those, but all these little patches of cypress, one's going to make it hard for you to get off any of the roads and cross the areas, but it allows for a lot of areas for the deer to funnel in differently. Like right through here, this looks like a good funnel, but they could funnel through here, they could funnel out this way. So there's nothing that really directs the deer for you and can concentrate them really well for you. So this can be, this may be a hard area to find some good, heavily concentrated funnel points. But like the last area I pointed out, I think there's some good areas that are secluded still that may hold a lot of those, a lot of good deer, a lot of bigger bucks. And once again, if you're an archery hunter, you can take does, and you have that option of just a smaller deer, two points on one side. So I hope you guys found this useful. In full disclosure, I do want to note there was one area that I didn't include in the video. it's an area I wanted to send to one of the people who been commenting on my videos. I don't believe they've shot their first deer yet, and I just wanted to give them a little helpful insight, just to help them out. Don't even know if it's going to work out for them. Hopefully they'll give me some feedback, and if it's a good area, deer and that, maybe I'll talk about that in a later video. Anyway, good luck to everyone out there. If there's an area you'd like me to look at in Google Scout, please let me know.